Hey guys, it's Yorkie here and welcome to the channel for another semi-endurance event with the 2.4 hours of Sebring, the 24-hour for Anna charity event that Le Mans Ultimate was hosting over the course of the weekend. And as the 2.4 hour of Le Mans was so much fun, I thought it would be a great idea to give this one a go as well. And this turned out to be a fantastic race too. This is split 1 of 4. This was on the Saturday, the 1 PM time slot. And we're going to be starting in a P7, so qualifying went much better this time round. Not quite got a full grasp of the car yet. This is a mostly default setup that I am running as well. There's just been one or two very small tweaks. I need to sit down and take the time to learn the setups here in Le Mans Ultimate and figure out what really works on the cars and what doesn't, especially on these hypercars that are obviously different to the GT3s that I'm used to creating setups for. But here we are in the rolling start formation phase. We're just trying to stay in our legal spot. Turning the headlights on there. Going to be on the left-hand side of the grid, so we're going to have the inside for turn 1, which is going to be important. We've got some Cadillacs around us, Ferraris, Porsches behind. We're just waiting for that green light. And there it is, so underway, racing, getting a relatively good reaction once again to that green light, disengaging the pit limiter, closing up on the Cadillac in front, having a slight look to the inside, but I know it's going to be risky trying to make a move down the inside of them there. Collecting the inside wall on the apex of turn 1 as it juts out just a little bit, managing to just about recover and catch the slide, but we've lost 2 places in that. There's some yellow flags up ahead, and we've got cars all around us, so on the back foot slightly, but things settle down now as we come into this long left-hander and we're kind of single file. Have picked up some damage from that collision with the wall on the inside. Front left is slightly crumpled and the steering is ever so slightly off centre again, just like in the 2.4 hours of Le Mans. Looking down the inside of the Porsche, also moves across, creating a 3-wide situation. There's some crunching going on to our left between a couple of the cars, and we end up redressing in the positions that we were previously. That wasn't necessarily an intentional move down the inside. I was just trying to get some free air, but the Cadillac isn't the strongest on the brakes. I think I may have slightly outbraked myself, but also the Porsche jinking over slightly in the braking zone as well kind of forced effectively a 3-wide situation. Otherwise it probably would have just been me and the Porsche going side by side. So I don't think too much damage was done there and everything's okay. Just trying to build up the temperature in the tyres and brakes, because obviously they start off stone cold, which doesn't really help things for us in terms of grip. So just trying to build the temperature and the grip up there, as there you can see the effect of the cold tyres as one of the Ferrari 499P hypercars spins off to the left hand side. So that's giving us a freebie back up into P10. Got a bit of slipstream here on the Porsche in front of us, and the pace here in this lobby is pretty high as the Porsche goes a little bit deep coming through Sunset Corner, the final turn here. Getting the power down quite nicely and tucking up underneath the rear wing. So we've got a little bit of overspeed compared to theirs, so we're going to look to the inside and draw up alongside them as we come down in towards turn 1. And this is a relatively simple move, it's just a case of nailing the apex, which we do, and that's us back up into the position that we started, so that's ideal. Starting to make a little bit of a recovery. The car is still not quite providing the grip that we want. The race started off at, I think, like 10 AM in game time. So the temperatures and track temperatures are relatively low. They're down in the low 20s at the moment. So we come into the hairpin here and don't quite get the car slowed down enough. So still lacking a little bit of grip as the Porsche has a little bit of a look to our right hand side on the exit there, but we got on the power sooner than them and retain that position. But yeah, the only tyre options that we had in this race were mediums or hards. So a little bit different to Le Mans, because Le Mans was offering up the soft tyres, which would have been ideal for these cooler conditions. Just very quickly looked there on the info tab, and yeah, it was reading 22.8 degrees C track temperature. So pretty cold. The mediums were slated to be working at the optimal temperature of about 87 degrees C. And obviously in these cooler conditions it's going to be much more difficult to actually get those medium tyres up to that optimal operating temperature. Obviously as we go throughout the race and we kind of go into the afternoon and there's been more sun actually on the track surface, it's going to heat it up, it's going to be much easier, there's going to be more grip there. But at the moment, at the start of this race, things are going to be a little bit more tricky. So yeah, some soft tyres would have been great, but we didn't have the option of those. It's either the medium or the hards, nothing else. And the other thing to note as well in this race compared to Le Mans, where we had 10 new tyres that we could take, we can only take 8 new tyres in this race. So we've used, or using 4 now already for the start of this race, which means that in the 2 stops that we're going to be making here in this race, in only one of those stops, I've got 4 new tyres to take. I can, if I wanted to take 2 new tyres in one of the stops and then 2 new tyres in the second stop, but I think the optimal strategy will be going for a full set of new tyres all round. So we're jumping ahead because not really much happened between where we were a few laps ago to where we are now. We are still in P9. We have managed to pull away from the Porsche behind. You can see the gap now, 3 seconds, and we're kind of hanging around in and around the same sort of region to the cars in front, which is quite nice. We're coming on the exit of the corner here. There's a Toyota spinning off into the wall on the left hand side, so that was a freebie for us. We're now up into P8. We've also gained a few tenths on the cars in front of us, as they were having to slow a little bit more than I was to avoid getting collected in that situation. So yeah, another position gained, but as you can probably tell by the race map up in the top right hand corner, and also the standings up in the top left as we're running race labs once again, you can see that the leading pair have pulled and broken away from P3 onwards. You can actually see P3 up the road there, as well as 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th in front of us. So whilst we've not got the pace of the leading pair, it looks like we're able to keep with this gaggle of cars up in front. So that's quite encouraging, especially as as I mentioned earlier, running a near default setup. I think it was only really the anti-roll bars that I changed. I think it also closed up the radiators, I think, ever so slightly, and some adjustment to the brake bias, brake migration, and the brake duct blanking. But other than that, there wasn't really any other changes. Maybe some changes to the dampers as well, but they were fairly marginal and just kind of guesswork, really, rather than based off of any real data. Just hoping to slightly improve the handling of the car, and test things out at the same time. This lap was a quite nice one, as you can see. We're dropping down into the low 48s, 48.1 with the fastest middle sector of anybody in the race, and then personal best first and third sector. That gap now coming down to just under, or in and around 1 second to the Cadillac in front of us. So continuing to have good pace, just gaining a tenth or two on those cars in front on a lap by lap basis, which is nice. And as you can probably also see from the track map up in the top right hand corner, us blue labelled hypercars are starting to get very, very close to the GT3s. There's no LMP2s in this race, it's just hypercars and GT3s. So again, it is a multi-class race at 2.4 hours, so 2 hours and 24 minutes. With the it's not a full day and night cycle this time. It's mimicking the Sebring 12 hours. So we start off in the morning, as I've mentioned, and then we head into the night. So now coming out of this corner is where we're going to encounter our first bit of multi-class traffic, and in fact it's that McLaren that is spinning there off on their left-hand side. We do manage to find a space to slip around past them, but that was a pretty hairy moment for myself and the 2 cars in front. Turned out that the McLaren didn't have a rear wing at the time, carrying damage, and obviously just turning into that fast left-handed king. Lack of downforce on the rear caused the car to spin out of control and swap ends on itself. You can see more multi-class cars, or more GT3 cars, shall I say, up in front of us. So we're not going to be hindered here. Coming out the exit of the final turn, they stay very nicely over to the left-hand side of the circuit there, giving us the racing line, and with the power that we have now, straight line speed, or the overall speed advantage, shall I say, over the GT3s, allowed us to slip very nicely past them down that start-finish straight well before turn 1, but now we're getting slightly held up here as this sequence of turns is effectively a no passing zone on the GT3s. So we slip around the outside of one there quite nicely. We are now very nice and close to the cars up in front, and yeah, we've got a McLaren here, so we're just going to slot in behind them because there's no point in trying to go underneath them in the hairpin there. Apex speed should be relatively the same in that slow speed corner. Not the best of runs coming off the exit of the turn though. Kind of misjudged the distances a little bit and got caught out on the dirt and grass on the outside, which has lost us some time, and obviously a little bit more time lost there being patient with that BMW, but it's much better to be safe than sorry with these GT3 cars. Just be patient, especially in these sort of situations where cars are so closely condensed with one another. You're always going to find moments where the multi-class traffic works in your favour, like that sequence of corners there. They get caught up with a couple of GT3s through the faster flowing stuff, and that's immediately gained us 6-7 tenths again, and we're back within half a second of the two cars in front of there, going side by side, coming into Sunset. The Cadillac making the move down the inside of the Porsche, and it looks like they've got the move pretty much done as they're splitting the BMW. We're going off to the right as well. Now the Porsche comes back across to the right hand side to pass the McLaren. It's always good fun driving in and around the multi-class traffic, seeing the different lines that people are taking. BMW there on the outside on the grass and dirt, but they managed to keep it on the straight and narrow, and the car facing in the right direction, so not too scary as the Ferrari has a slight moment there cutting across the grass, and now the Porsche's run a little bit deep coming off the exit. There's going to be an opportunity for us to get the power down and slip on through past them, so we're now up into P7. Having a little bit of a look to the inside of the Ferrari here, and the not so great braking on the Cadillac slash the possibly slightly earlier braking on the Ferrari allowed us to draw up alongside at the apex, but we didn't really quite get the punch coming off the exit of the corner. So now we're tucked up right up underneath the rear wing, lifting out ever so slightly there. He's got a Ferrari GT3. Now the Porsche's looking down the inside of us, makes contact with the Ferrari on our inside. We just about managed to avoid getting collected in all that, as well as the Porsche spun itself there on the Ferrari. Thank God for that radar there and giving us the extra situational awareness to see what was unfolding and judge it just about enough to avoid getting collected in that incident. So don't think we picked up any damage from that. Just playing around with the hybrid motor map as our state of charge is up in and around 92% as the Ferrari runs a little bit deep there, coming through that right-hander onto the back straight. So we've got some nice slipstream here, pulling up alongside. We're going to have to move across to give them room to pass the GT3, just to avoid any risk of them moving across and sideswiping us. I could probably use the GT3 as a pick, but there's no real reason to at this stage in the race with over 2 hours still to go. There's plenty of time for battling, so there's no need to get aggressive or anything like that. But we made the move on the Ferrari there, as you saw. So that's us now up into P6, getting past the BMW there. That was in P3. So Ferrari outbraking itself a little bit and running deep into turn 3 there. Quite nicely through that sequence of turns, and now we can start to hopefully try to pull away a little bit from the Ferrari and see if we can try and close up again on that Cadillac up in front, which has had the luxury of passing a few GT3s. That's quite nice opportunities. Once again struggling with the brakes a little bit in the Cadillac and running a little bit deep there in the hairpin. Now we're coming up alongside the BMW, and we just about managed to pass them before the apex of this right-hander, and the Ferrari just about managed to slip on through as well. But now we've got the GT3 race leader, and we're going to be relatively patient here as the Ferrari's not so patient, goes sailing around the outside and then straight off into the wall as yeah, there was no real room there for them, with the BMW holding its line, taking the usual racing line, and the Ferrari being forced off onto the grass where there's no grip. Just went straight on, and you heard the thud as the front of the Ferrari went into the wall. So no doubt they're going to have a ton of damage, which they'll need to pit for and get repaired. But that's what can so easily happen when you're not patient with the multi-class traffic, especially when a hypercar in front of you is being patient. I knew that I needed to be up alongside that BMW much earlier in that sequence of corners in order to make a pass before the braking zone of that right-hander. So we're up into P6. You can see here I'm just playing around with the fuel ratio a little bit with the NRG down in the bottom right-hand corner. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of fuel in comparison to our NRG amount. 16.7 laps of fuel, whereas we've got 16.1 laps of NRG. So I'm thinking I may need to change and adjust that ratio to bring it in a little bit closer. But I'm seeing that as I'm moving up and down between 0.96, 0.95 and 0.94, it's adjusting it by about 1 litre, which is a little bit too much. So I think we settled on basically 0.01% lower than what it was previously. And we skip ahead again, not much has changed. We're just coming up to our second round of multi-class traffic now, as we've got Corvette just here in front of us. They're taking their normal line, so we're just having to hesitate a little bit and time that right to slip on past them. Continue to build the gap over P7 behind, so we're still holding P6, and then the gap to the car in front, the Cadillac that we saw, is still in and around 3.5 seconds. So I think they have slight pace over us by a 10th or 2 a lap now that they've got themselves in clear air after the overtaking in the first round of multi-class traffic that we saw earlier. So we're going with round 2 now. So we have jumped a few laps ahead. We've got a Ferrari here on the approach to turn 1. We're going to have to be patient here and basically wait for the exit of the turn. So we slip underneath them on their left-hand side. And now we've got 3 cars here in front of us as we come into turns 3, turn 4, taking a little bit on the inside there, and then this long left-hander at turn 5, which has a late apex before coming onto this back straight. So we slide around the outside of the first 2 GT3 cars and then switch to the inside of the McLaren coming into the braking zone here. We just about managed to get ourselves ahead without really impeding them. Speeds here aren't quite as high as Le Mans, so the braking is relatively similar between us hypercars and the GT3s. I think we do still brake ever so slightly earlier, as losing the car a little bit there coming into that right hand and not quite getting the car slowed down enough in the rear end, complaining with the demand from the front tyres trying to turn in. This is a difficult track to brake on, because although it's flat, there isn't really any sort of real undulation. The surface is really, really bumpy, and this is actually, I think, a relatively recent scam, because they've got the WEC pit lane here on our right hand side. The IMSA pits is after the final corner here, so a slightly unusual layout in the sense that the pit lane doesn't marry up with where the start finish line actually is, but that is because on the race weekend in the real world that this event took place with these cars in this championship, it was also doubled up with the IMSA Sebring 12 hours. I think it was the 1,000 kilometers of Sebring that the WEC round was, which raced on the Friday, and then on the Saturday was the IMSA Sebring 12 hours. So yeah, my mistake. We're not recreating the Sebring 12 hours, I don't think. I think it's more the Sebring 1000, the World Endurance Championship round that they hosted here. But we will still be going into the night anyway, as we're going through some more multi-class traffic. We've got a BMW here, and coming into this hairpin, accidentally going down the inside of the BMW. Good situation awareness by them to give me the racing room. That wasn't necessarily intentional. It's just very, very bumpy there in the braking zone and not quite on top of the Cadillac's brakes. Ended up forcing that situation slightly as we go around the outside of the McLaren. I think they actually wanted to kind of block us and prevent us from going and passing them there into that right-hander, but they left the room there on the outside, and I was a little bit cheeky and took that. not wanting to lose too much time to the car ahead, as they've got the gap down to over 5 seconds, as you can see. And yeah, we gave him room on the inside there anyway. But yes, we skip ahead once again. Another chunk of time. Some more multi-class traffic that we're going to be going through. We've got 2 cars here side by side on the approach down to turn 1, so we're going to have to be a little bit careful and extra cautious and time this right and pass them there on the exit of the corner on the inside. Again, not really much has happened since that little jump ahead that we did. The car in front, the Cadillac, has continued to eke the gap out. Now 7.5 to 8 seconds up the road, closer to 8 seconds I think, and we continue to pull away from the car behind as well. The gap is now 10 seconds. A few little mistakes here and there by myself under braking, but nothing major. Just losing a tiny bit of time, which contributed to them pulling away. So we got McLaren there slipping past them. That's kind of how you almost want to be passing in that section. Ideally, you want to be passing them on the right-hand side, but the McLaren was all the way kind of over to the right-hand side of the circuit. So I opted to go for the left, and it worked out fairly well, as the McLaren looked like they saw it coming. But that's basically as late as you could leave it in that sequence of turns to make the pass without there being too much risk. So let's talk about race strategy then. We're going to be repairing all the damage on the car. We're not going to be taking tyres here in this pit stop. So we've still got the 4 new tyres available to us. This is going to be our first pit stop. We haven't done it yet. As you can see, we'll be doing it in a lap or two's time with the information down in the bottom right with regards to our fuel load and NRG. But our 2 real options are, we either take new tyres now, which will give us new tyres when the track is at its hottest, and obviously there'll be plenty of grip there, and obviously with the new tyres there'll be the ultimate pace achievable, or optimal pace sort of achievable with those tyres. However, we'll have to basically either double stint those tyres or double stint the tyres from this first stint here in the cooler conditions at night or later on in the race, where obviously the grip won't be so high. The other option to that is we keep the tyres that we have on now. Yes, they won't have quite as much tyre life and they will be worn, but at least they'll be worn in the conditions when the track is at its grippiest. And then when it comes to the nighttime cooler conditions later, I've got a brand new set of tyres for them, and hopefully the extra tyre grip that will come from that new set will offset the fact that the temperature conditions are going to be cooler and the grip loss that you're going to have from that. So that's effectively my thinking in my head, is we're going to go for that option of not changing tyres this time round. We'll just refuel the car up to basically near enough full fuel load or 100% NRG, and we'll keep the tyres on that we've got on. We'll repair the car, and then we'll save the new tyres for the final stint at the end of the race when the temperature conditions are cooler, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more tyre grip and hopefully slightly better performance through that. So this is going to be my final lap here. Just double checking everything again, as you can see. So we're set to repair all 100% virtual energy. The fuel ratio set to 0.96. It was 0.97 as it was previously talking about earlier, and then I dropped it down to 0.96, which should bring it closer between that fuel load and NRG when we kind of take into account how many laps they can do. Accidentally shifting up into second gear there in the hairpin, so trying to slow the car down. And yeah, as previously mentioned, the pit lane is in a different spot to where the start finish straight is. So we'll come through these corners here into into the right-hander. There's me just double-checking what the current state of tyres are as the rear end goes and brakes a little bit loose. So you can see the tyre wear is actually relatively even. Around all four corners is kind of 5, maybe 6% between the front left and the front right. And here is the entrance to the pit lane here on the right-hand side. So we slow down, dart around the wall here, and then here is the line, making sure we get slowed down for that and avoid picking up any sort of penalty. The odd thing about the pit stops here is the pit box is actually at a bit of an angle, as you can see illustrated there. So I kind of drive in at a slightly more unusual angle, and we get turned round on the dolly jacks and the pit stop begins. So 65 seconds is going to be the length of the pit stop, 25 seconds to repair the damage, and the rest of the time is for replenishing the virtual energy and our fuel. So as the pit work is being done here, I skip ahead a bit of time in the pit stop. And one thing to note, this Cadillac here in front of us that's just been released now, as we also get released, was the car that was in front of us. If you remember, they were about 7, maybe 8 seconds up the road when we came into the pit stop. The other thing to note is that Ferrari we saw trundling down the pit lane, that's here on our right, was the car that was behind, about 10 seconds behind us when we came into the pit lane. And the gaps have now closed up. So obviously I've saved some time by not taking tyres, but we have lost some time by repairing the car. And what I think has happened is both of the two cars in front and behind us have changed tyres and possibly repaired a little bit of damage on their cars as well, whilst also taking some fuel. So we've gained on the car in front, but we've also lost time to the car behind. They've gained time on the both of us. So we want relatively cool tyres, warm tyres as well, so they should come up to temperature a fair bit quicker because they're not starting from completely cold. So we once again skip ahead in time and look in the rear view mirror. There is a Ferrari lurking behind. We have jumped a reasonable amount of time here and not much has really happened. Obviously them being on the fresher tyres, having more grip, have closed the gap on us as we go and make a mistake there. And now they've got a fantastic run on us, picking up the slipstream. I'm not going to go defensive here, there's no point when they've got that much of a run on us. So they pull up alongside. They're on the inside here coming into sunset, so I don't really fight it too much, but they themselves go a little bit deep and I just take the normal racing line and then hold it relatively tight on the exit there, and we slip back underneath, retaining that position. But yeah, we've lost time to the car in front. The gap is now, as you can see in the relative and the standings there on the left hand side, in and around 9.5 to 10 seconds, and the car behind, the Ferrari that we are now battling with for this 6th possession that we're currently holding, have also gained time. So yeah, both of them on fresher tyres, having that pace advantage over myself on the worn tyres. I see the Ferrari's pretty close there, coming off the exit onto this short straight here before we get to the braking zone. We just need to get the car slowed down and tucked into the apex nicely, which we do manage to do. So we push on through, try to hold this position. There are some GT3s, or a GT3 up the road, 8.5 seconds as the rear end gets really loose there on the last little bit of phase of braking, just holding a little bit too much braking input and just snatched the rear brake slightly, but we managed to hold on to it and we didn't really lose too much time to the Ferrari behind either, so it's not too bad for us. We hold this gap for now, but they're certainly applying some pressure and they're lurking in the mirrors. Obviously wanting to take this position away with the extra grip that they have. Gap now is over 10 seconds to Gerard up in front in P5, so they're making use of the grip that they have, but things will swing the other way in the next pit stop, where I'm hoping that the brand new tyres in the cooler conditions will actually work in my favour, and I'll be losing less time here in this stint than if I was doing it the other way around, as we managed to sneak past the McLaren there. And the Ferrari got held up ever so slightly, but not really all that much, as I wasn't really able to take the optimal line and the optimal speed through turn 1, so we didn't really gain too much time there. by going up the inside. One thing that did prevent was me basically becoming really under threat from the Ferrari behind, and kept that buffer, because if I stayed behind the McLaren going through that turn one, it would have cost momentum coming out the corner, and the Ferrari behind would have been able to take a little bit more speed than I would have been able to, and certainly be right up underneath the rear wing. There I am checking the tyres, so 49% on the front left, 51% on the rear left. So again, we go and brake a little bit too deep here and run onto the dirt and grass. Ferrari's managing to slip on through down the inside of us. So just outbraked ourselves. I think I was paying a little bit too much attention to the MFD down in the bottom left, playing around with that and missed my braking point. So yeah, just double checking things again, just making sure that the tyres are okay, because I did hear a slight little bit of a tyre locking sound in the braking zone with that mistake, but I don't think any real damage was done to the tyres. It wasn't a properly big lockup, so Ferrari went a little bit wide there on the exit curb. You can use plenty of the curb, but not too much, as we go and set our pit strategy to take new mediums in the next pit stop, and we're closing nicely with the straight line speed, getting right underneath the rear wing of the Ferrari in front as we come through the final turn. Past the McLaren there, who stays very nicely out of the way. Not close enough to make the move into turn one, and both of us ran a little bit deep there, well away from the apex, but with their extra tyre grip they're able to pick up the throttle a little bit more aggressively than I am, and still confidently make the corner without running wide on the exit. As obviously me being in dirty air and also having the worn tyres, had to be a little bit more careful and hesitate a little bit more getting on throttle, but still we're staying nice and close, which is good. Try and put some pressure under them. There you can see a very slight lock-up from the Ferrari in front as they hit the bump that's right on the point that you start getting hard on the brakes there in that braking zone. It is quite a bumpy braking zone. As I mentioned, very bumpy circuit. It's very much the character of this track. And it's good fun trying to manage the bumps, as it does look like they are locking in a number of places, a number of different braking zones. Just seeing the odd little puff of smoke here and there. Are they going to clear this GT3 before the right-hander? Yes, they do manage to slip on through. Just going to be patient here and then go down the inside of them, coming into this left-hander that leads onto the back straight. Both of us running quite a lot of the exit curb. As I mentioned, you can use a fair amount of it, but there is also a slight rise to it in the middle, and it's quite easy to ground the floor of the car, bottom out on that, which does hurt your momentum and your speed coming off the corner there. So it's, you don't want to be running too far and wide out onto it. It's got more multi-class traffic here with the Ferrari moving over. We do manage to step down the inside of the BMW, and the Ferrari's gone a little bit deep. This is going to be our opportunity to slip on through. Hold the tighter line on the exit. Ferrari just carrying a little bit too much speed, I think, wanting to make sure that they get past the BMW before turn one. That little costly mistake has given me P5 back. So I thought we were battling for P6, but looking at the standings on the top left, someone has made a late pit stop, and that was a few laps ago, or a couple of laps ago, so that's where that change happened. And yeah, we're now up into the top 5, which is good and encouraging. We just need to hold on to this position from the Ferrari behind us, and actually Gerard up in front, Gerard up in front in P4, and his Cadillac is either got caught up in some multi-class traffic somewhere along the line and lost a whole bunch of time there, or has made a mistake, because the gap has now come down from what was about 10 seconds, maybe slightly more. It's now come down to just under 5, so the gap is halved. So probably had a slight mistaken excursion off track somewhere along the line. I'm just having a look through the MFD, trying to find the lap target. I want to set that up to 1, just to try and go a lap longer try and preserve some of the fuel and energy that we have here in this race, just to see if we can extend the stint slightly. So starting to build a little bit more of a gap now to the Ferrari behind. They may have pushed their tyres a little bit too much and possibly starting to struggle a little bit, as we ourselves have a very small inside front lockup, which cost us some ground from the apex. We've got just over an hour remaining here in this race, an hour and 3 minutes, as you can see up in the top left. I do like the race lab standings. As I mentioned in a previous video, it gives a fair bit more information than the typical standings do here that are part of the HUD in Le Mans Ultimate, as that really only shows the 2 cars in front and the 2 cars behind. Acts very much like more like a relative, just it's done to the positions in front of you rather than what the relative does, which is the next cars in front and behind. And of course the standings include the people behind as well, but yeah, the relative is all about the car that is on track in front of you, regardless of their actual position and whether they're in the same class or not, which is obviously very useful for these multi-class races. But yeah, that Race Labs standings board holds a whole lot more information up there with regards to the positions, their car numbers. You can see what lap they pitted on and how long their pit stop was, which includes the time in the pit lane as well, by the way. So those that are relatively close together in terms of time, they're going to be effectively doing the same sort of service actions. Those with more variation probably were repairing damage or some variation of not changing tyres and changing tyres. And then we've got obviously the interval gaps between each of us, the gap to the race leader, so we're 54 seconds off the race leader with their very quick and insane pace. Our fastest lap times that we've done in the race so far, and then the last lap time as well. So quite a bit more information. Very, very useful in these sort of races to kind of gauge your pace, see who you're quicker than, especially in the positions up ahead of you, which is quite nice to see and encouraging in many ways. When you're out of sight of the cars in front, you can't see them, but you can see that you're gaining 2-3 tenths of a second per lap. It's always encouraging. What else is encouraging is that we're managing to hold off the Ferrari behind us now, by the looks of things. So we go past the BMW, and in fact that Ferrari made a slight little mistake there coming out the exit of the slow right-hander. So the gap is now just under 4 seconds, there or thereabouts. It's giving us some breathing room, so we're now going to go ahead and skip further on, starting to get closer to our second pit stop. You can see down in the bottom right hand corner we've got 1.0 laps of energy, so we're going to be pitting here on this lap, just making sure that we've got everything set for the stoppers. We've got 48.5 minutes remaining here in this race, so we don't quite need a full tank of fuel, but it's going to be very, very close to that in order to get to the finish. As I mentioned previously, we're going to be taking new fresh medium tyres here in this pit stop for the final stint, as we're starting to get towards sunset, so the track conditions are going to be getting cooler as we now come into the pit lane once again. Not really troubling the pit lane too much, nice and smooth in, navigating our way around. And then here we're coming into our box again. This time it's a little bit slow in actually picking us up and trying to get us in. As you can see, it's not caught us yet, even though I thought that I'm in the right spot. And there we go. Now it's finally snapped and picked us up. So it's rotated us round. 12 seconds tyre repair and then virtual energy. So a 51-second pit stop, roughly, is what we're looking at when you're not taking tyres. And there goes that Cadillac up in front of us. We have jumped ahead in the pit stop. It's not the full amount of time, but the Cadillac has now gone and rolling down pit road, so they have not taken tyres here in this pit stop. Keep in mind on that, they're going to be on a used set now, so they took fresh tyres in that previous stop, but they didn't really materialise for them in terms of an advantage, because they ended up losing time or not really gaining too much ground on us. I think the gap was in at around 5 seconds. It did go up to 10, maybe 11 at one point, but they had some trouble somewhere along the line, and they lost some time and some ground to us. So this is working very nicely in our favour. However, one thing to note coming out the pit lane here, we are on stone cold tyres, as you can see. You can see them down at 29 degrees C now, so we're going to really have to baby these tyres coming through the first few turns, because there's going to be absolutely zero grip on them. I'm going to have to be super patient, picking up the throttle, trying to be smooth. I'm just going to have to be patient throughout this lap here to try and slowly work the tyres in. You can do a little bit of tyre weaving, which will heat up the tyres quicker, but you do also use some of the lateral grip that the tyres provide as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that case. Do you try and get the tyre temperature up sooner at the cost of some lateral grip, or do you just deal with the coldness and the lack of grip initially and just try and drive the lap as best you can, as normally as you can, and bring the tyres in that way? So they are getting warmer corner by corner, and each braking zone, as you can see, warming up more as well. And the grip will continue to come to us, but it's not going to be until we kind of get midway through the second lap that the grip is really going to be there, and that's when we can really start pushing. Gap to the car in front is, it looks like 9.3 seconds according to the standings board up in the top left, which is actually also the Ferrari as well. The Ferrari had jumped us again in that pit stop, as they didn't take tyres in that one. They only took fuel and virtual energy, and they've got a bit of a gap to us. So we've got some work to be doing in order to catch up. And now start to feel the tyres really starting to come in a little bit more. There's a bit more grip there. So yeah, Eli Sierra is the Ferrari up in front of us. There's a few other cars as well that have yet to pit, so there's a couple that are in the pits that we have passed now, so we're now back up into P8, but we should be in and around P5, P6 once other people have stopped as well. Pushing that front right just a little bit there coming through turn 1, trying to make use of the grip. Hustling the car through slow speed section of corners there, and the gap now starting to come down to Sierra in front. As you can see, gap's trickling down to 6 seconds. We jump now ahead to the point where we're much closer to them now, 1.5 seconds, and the sun is also starting to set in the distance too. So at this fairly early stage here in this final stint, I'm fairly happy and confident with my strategy. Having taken new tyres here at this point, it seems like we've got quite a bit more grip than the other cars in front. It's just a question as to whether we've got enough fuel and enough virtual energy to go the remainder of the race distance, and also do we have enough tyre grip to really catch up and make up a couple of positions. This Ferrari should be relatively easy considering how quickly we're closing up onto the back of them. It's only going to be a matter of a lap or two before we're able to make a pass. So the gap is now under half a second. Dropping our motor map down to 20 kilowatts as we're almost down at 0% in our stated charges. Gone up a fair amount there in the braking zone, but it will creep down again. Coming along this back straight, you can see it on the right hand side of the dash. 13, 12, 11 as we pass a Ferrari GT3 there. Slotting in behind, you can really see them starting to struggle with the tyres as the track temperature is dropping. Trying to see if there's a potential way through there coming through this section, but high risk, so we're just slotting behind for now. Here we go, got a good run coming down this back straight here. We've got 2 kinks as they go defensive to the inside, coming towards the braking zone. It's going to give me the outside here. We should be able to make the move work with the extra grip that we've got, and we do manage to slip around the outside of them there. Very nice move. Taking the tyre advantage into our hands and using that against them. So now we're free to push on and try and build a gap. We do have a GT3 car here up in front of us. Trying to figure out which is going to be the best way to go. Decide to go around the outside of them there. Through Sunset. Getting nice and close. One thing I have to praise Le Mans Ultimate on is their netcode. It's very, very good here in this sim. Very reliable, and you can really lean in close to other cars without worrying about lag becoming a factor and network prediction being an issue. It seems nice and tight, and you can get really, really close door to door, wheel to wheel with other cars. So I've not really experienced any lag spikes or issues, and just the general car contacts, the way it feels as well, feels really realistic. You kind of lean on other cars a fair amount without any unusual physics reactions going on. It's not like ACC where the cars effectively are almost like solid bricks, and any sort of contact equates to a direct energy transfer from one car to another. Is looking around the outside of the McLaren here and basically getting a little bit too impatient and making a mistake there, running out wide. That allows the Ferrari to slip on through, and they managed to slip on past the BMW, having to lift out slightly just to make sure that the McLaren saw us and gave us room there, which they did. But yeah, that was just me just getting a little bit too impatient there with the multi-class traffic, trying to make something work when nothing really was going to work, and outbroke myself in the process. So now we've got to try and get back past this Ferrari once again. But we've got the slipstream here on the run down towards Sunset Corner. Closing up quite nicely, and the braking as they go a little bit deep and away from the apex, which gives us much better drive coming off the exit, drawing up almost alongside, but they're carrying good speed coming onto the straight, so tucking behind, picking up the slipstream, looking to the inside, making the move down the inside of turn 1, sending it there, and we managed to gain a position, just about managing to keep the car on the circuit, or at least the left-hand wheels on the exit curb on the outside of turn 1 there, and we get that position back. So now we skip ahead once again by another chunk of time. We're into the final half hour of this race. We're in P5. The Ferrari that we were just passing there did also go back into the pits again at some point. Not entirely sure what for. Maybe they didn't take enough fuel and energy to go to the remainder of the race and decided to pit in order to ensure that they could make it to the end. Now we can see the gap to the cars up in front. It's just over 11 seconds to Jaguard in his Cadillac, who we've been hunting down for the majority of the race. But then also Sorius. P3 is 12 seconds up the road, so it's relatively close between the two of them, about a second and a half or so, just under. So there could be a potential P3 on the cards, as we are continuing to eke the gap down from them. We did a 47.9 on our previous lap, whereas they were in the 49s, a 49.0 for P4 and then a 49.1 for P3. So we're taking out a good second or so a lap out of them. Obviously, this fresh tyre strategy here at the end is working out quite nicely for us. So we just need to be patient with the multi-class traffic, work our way through that at a nice steady rate, and continue to eat away at that gap, because we've got, I think that's 27 minutes remaining. And obviously if we're taking a second a lap, we should get there to them before the countdown timer, but basically before the end of the race. So you can really see the lighting conditions starting to change now as we're heading in towards sunset. We're going to get past this BMW. We just about managed to slip on past them in the braking zone there, leaving that a little bit late, but they gave us plenty of room as the Ferrari GT3 there taking a lot of curb on the inside. You can see just on the horizon the sun is just starting to dip behind those trees. It's now pretty much gone, so we are going to go into the darkness now. Nice and progressively. There you can see it's slowly, smoothly transitioning. So I'm just taking a look at the tyres. They're in a relatively good state, obviously eating a little bit into their tyre life, but hanging around 85% on the front left, kind of in and around 76-77% on the front right, which doesn't get worked as hard here at this track, with it being a predominantly clockwise circuit. So there's more right-handers than there are left-handers, and that's going to work the left side more. You can see again another good chunk of time gained, another 48.0, whereas the two cars in front did a 49.7 for P4 and a 49.3 for P3. So another good second to a second and a half taken out of them, and you can see the gap as well on the relative down in the bottom left is now less than 10 seconds to both the cars. So we're pushing on, trying to make the strategy work. Just need to be clean and clinical, not making any mistakes. Hope that they make mistakes and just time it right with the multi-class traffic. And if anything, that's probably the more important factor, as actually one of the cars in front of us, Sawyer's, is into the pit lane. So this is going to give us P4 now, as they're having to stop, possibly also realising that they're not going to have the fuel or energy to make it to the end unless that is a scheduled stop for them. So that promotes us up a position, and a gap to P3, 8 seconds up the road. P2 and P1 are basically well off, out in the distance. P1 is 48 seconds up the road. So we have been gaining on them here in this final stint with the fresher tyres. No doubt they probably on the worn tyres. So I'm taking a different strategy to everyone else, it seems. We are closing up on the race leader, but 48 seconds, 47 odd seconds now, with less than 25 minutes remaining here in the race. It's going to be a very, very difficult task to do unless they have some quite hefty drama happen to them in their race, and with their 4-second lead that they have over P2, they're probably just maintaining a steady rate and avoiding making any mistakes, being patient with the multi-class traffic, as the two of them can afford to do it. So they've got a good 38 seconds gap to P3, so plenty of time and space for them as we settle up the inside there of one of the GT3s. Around the outside quite nicely of the other BMW there. Just clipping the dirt and grass on the outside slightly, but didn't really affect the car too much. It's good. Sky looking rather pretty as the sun is disappearing deeper and further off behind the horizon line and heading into the night now. Obviously the track lighting coming on, lighting up the circuit as well as our headlights, and the gap 6 seconds now creeping under as we come into the final corner here. Hooking up the apex very nicely, bouncing over the bumps at the apex, and then there's another one on the towards the exit. Gap just over 5.5 seconds there or thereabouts. So things are looking good. Just pushing that front right tyre through the left-hander there. Effectively, where you start to heel it squealing is effectively the optimal way, I think, of taking that circuit, taking that corner. Pushing the tyre through. Now just managing the hybrid motor. So down at 14% on our hybrid energy. So we'll dial the motor map back so it deploys less hybrid energy, as we're a little bit deep there in the hairpin. But yeah, dial it back so we're using less electric energy, more internal combustion engine, more fuel. It's going to obviously help in terms of the handling and the performance of the car. But all of this time it's consuming the virtual energy that we have, and that's basically governing our stint lengths. So a slight change on the front ARB. Something that you can do here in these cars is adjust the anti-roll bar positioning. This race I have been running, I think I started off on 4 on the front and then 2 on the rear. The default setup was 4 and 1, so that was one of the changes that I've made to the setup. I've kept the rear ARB on 2 throughout this race, but I have dialed the front ARB back a little bit throughout this race, dropping it to 3 at one point. I think when the tyres were effectively in their second stint, dropped it to 3 and now dropped it to 2 again, just to try and bring a little bit more grip onto the front tyres in the slower corners. It's going to impact the higher speed stuff as well, but it's more the slow speed that I'm noticing where the car is struggling. So the gap is 3.5 seconds now to P3 in front of us. So we're closing nicely onto them. One of the other things that I'm constantly thinking about here in my mind is, do we actually have the virtual energy to make it to the end of the race without stopping? I did take slightly less than a full tank. I think it was 96% rather than 100, in and around there. And I'm kind of eyeballing back and forth between the NRG that I have in the bottom right and how many laps is actually remaining there, and then how much time is actually left in the race as well. We've got just under 20 minutes remaining. So I'm trying to do internal calculations. Am I going to have enough energy, or am I going to need a little bit more? Just double checking the tyres and their temperatures. Just under 80 odd degrees. Obviously the track temperature dropping away now that we're in the night time conditions and there's no sunlight shining down onto the circuit to keep it nice and warm. So temperatures aren't actually going to fall away here. But my tyres have got a lot more tyre life and therefore grip on them compared to those around us, which is why we're quite comfortably gaining time on them when we've got a nice lovely gap of 1 minute and 3 odd seconds to the car behind us in P5, so they're not a threat to us. So you can see the lap target system there starting to come into effect on the approach to turn 1 with the purple lights. Here it is again coming into this braking zone, so I'm going to start driving and following that to ensure that we are able to make it to the end, and hopefully at the same time continue to close this 2.5 second gap to P3 in front of us. You can see them visually there on the circuit up ahead. We've got a BMW M4 GT3 between us and them, but they're also in the yellow/gold fronted Cadillac, same car as us. So we passed the BMW at a nice moment without losing any time. But rate of progress of closing in on P3 has slowed a little bit here in the last lap or so, as I've started to really think about the energy and as to whether we've got enough to make it to the end. So whilst I've got the tyre advantage there, obviously I don't want to have to make another pit stop if I can avoid it, so trying to extend as best I can and ensure that we've got enough. Because at the moment I'm thinking we might actually be a lap short, or half a lap short, as we're 9.5 laps remaining coming down the back straight here, and we've got 17.5 just under minutes remaining as we go deep here into the final corner, having to drop down into second gear to try and help slow the car up a little bit and avoid the outside tyre wall. So it's cost us some time. A little bit frustrating, but still confident that we can get P3 here in the time remaining, only being 2 seconds now behind them. So just need to be patient, continue to chip away at the gap. There's no doubt they're going to be feeling the pressure, seeing this gap closing, knowing that I'm going to be on fresher tyres and have the grip over them. There's me just playing with the lap target system, dropping it down from 2 down to 1, just to see if we've got enough, and then deciding actually no, let's go 2 just to make it safe. Bit of lift and coast here, coming into this right-hander. Not a huge amount, but enough to basically work with the lap target system. It's going to start flashing up on the display there. So yeah, not quite as much of an overlap, or not quite as immediate, transferring from the throttle pedal to the brake pedal now. There is a half a second to a second sort of transition, as you can hear here. Accidentally shifting down into second gear, but making that corner quite nicely nonetheless. Again, very small amount of lift and coast there. Just making sure that I'm lifting just before the lap target system disappears. Double checking strategy stuff. Ferrari flashing at me, I think, to let us know that they're going to let us go down the inside there. Adjusting the traction control. Can't quite remember whether that was up or down. Just trying to digest the information, calculate and work out in my head, have we got this right? Have we got enough to get to the end? And running deep there into the final hairpin, have to crank a whole load of steering lock in to try and get the car tucked in. Fuel prediction is saying 14.3 minutes remaining. We've got basically 14.5 minutes of the race left, so that's basically confirmed to me. It's like, right, we are going to need to save some fuel and save some energy here, try and extend out at least another lap or so if we can, just to make sure that we can go to the end without having to take another lap of fuel. As up ahead there's chaos unfolding in front of us. P3 crashing into the back of a GT3 car there, so we slip on through and get the position. But let's take a look at the replay. So we're on board with the Cadillac in P3. There's the BMW up in front of us. Typically the BMW is meant to hold its line coming through here, which they don't do, and the Cadillac committing to the right hand side, thinking that the BMW is going to hold its line. Here's another angle of it. So the Cadillac wants to go around the outside here, but the BMW just deviates from its line, wanting to give the racing line to the Cadillac, and that miscommunication and the unexpected nature of that situation led to the Cadillac going into the back of the BMW, both of them crashing, getting severe damage, taking P3 out of contention there in the final 20 minutes of the race, which is really gutting for them. So yeah, that was unfortunately on the BMW M4 GT3 car's fault, trying to move out the way. Just stay on your racing line, let the hypercar cars or the faster class cars go around the outside there, and the double left-handed kink. It's best to just stay on your racing line and let the other cars go around you, rather than trying to move off the line and facilitate a pass. And we've jumped ahead here to the final minute of the race. Nothing else has happened. Obviously we inherited P3 through that incident. Huge gap to the car behind, 1 minute and 25 odd seconds, 39 seconds off the back of P2. So we were literally just driving around, doing our best to fuel save, to ensure that we had enough to make it to the end of the race without having to take another stop. And you can see lifting and coasting a fair bit more here than we were earlier on in the race. We did cross the line with 1.2 laps worth of virtual energy remaining. There it is, countdown timer reaching 0. So this is the final lap of the race, and really if I needed to, I could jump into the pits here, take a very quick splash of virtual energy to basically do the final corner, but that shouldn't be necessary, as we're going to coast around here in this last lap or so. This position here isn't under threat, as in fact P4 has been lapped by the race leader, as well as them and P2 have crossed the start finish line. So it's me now just trundling around here through the final few corners, As you can see there, 0.3 laps worth of fuel remaining. So we're going to go up to the motor map, switch that up to the maximum, lift off big time on the run down here to the start finish line to make sure that we do cross the line with some virtual energy remaining, because if it does go down to 0, we're going to get a very, very big penalty for not finishing the race. It's just trickling down there, 0.8% as we get across the line, and we take a nice lovely P3 here in this 2.4 hour of Sebring 24 for Anna charity race. Hopefully you guys and girls enjoyed that one. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you're new here to the channel. Otherwise, leave your comments and questions down below, and thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, have fun, stay safe, take care.